Hi everybody, this is Lisa with Verbling.com, and it's time for another English class. We have English classes every hour here on Verbling.com. Sometimes we have one or two teachers teaching a class at the same time. And if you are a member of Verbling.com, then you can join the class at any time. You can join as many classes as you would like, all day, every day, basically. We have teachers from around the world. They are all native speakers of English, but they live in different countries around the world. So I live in the United States. I live in the state of Washington on the West Coast. So I'm here, and then we have other teachers in other places like Costa Rica, the Netherlands, other parts of Canada. So if you are interested in practicing your English, then joining Verbling is a great way to do that. Every hour you can join different types of classes. So for example, this class is going to be a reading class. So what happens during the reading class is I choose an article. I usually choose articles that are good for intermediate to advanced learners. So people who are not real beginners but more intermediate level students. And what I do is I choose an article, sometimes from the New York Times. Today it is an article from the BBC. So we get both American English and British English, and we read the article together. So what I do is I actually read the article one paragraph at a time. So I read first, and so you get to hear me saying the words, and that way you can listen and hear my pronunciation, and then each student takes a turn reading. And so if you want to do that, you can join the class now. There were some reservations, so if you had a reservation, you can use that now. And if you don't, that's okay. You don't need to have a reservation unless the class is full. So we can have up to 9 students in the class. And yeah, so we have some people who have joined us. Hi, Mohammed. How are you doing today?
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good. Mohammed, who's that picture?
This is, I think, Indian poet. His name is Tagore.
Oh, okay. Tagur. And Mohammed, where are you from?
I'm from United Arab Emirates.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome.
Yeah,
And
you.
Lucas is back. Hi, Lucas. How are you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Good. Welcome back. So you guys know the drill. Did you open the... Yeah, it looks like maybe you guys already opened. We're going to wait just a minute to see who else shows up because we did have a few reservations. So Alexander's joining us again. Hi, Alexander.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm
Yeah?
just finishing a little work with my computer, and now 1 hour or 2 English classes.
Great. Wonderful. Okay. And how's the weather in Spain today?
Well, today is a funny day, but the temperature not warm. It's very humidity in town. Maybe we are in 15 degrees or less. And it's cold. It's cold. At the night.
It's cold for you,
cold.
yeah. Yeah.
And for me too. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait. Great. Okay. Well, wonderful. Mohammed, what's the weather like right now in the United Arab Emirates?
An emirate, it's a desert area.
Yes, I know.
It's always.
It's raining petroleum.
Yes, exactly.
Is it raining petroleum?
Yes. But these days is a little cold, maybe around 25.
That's cool for you.
Yeah. That's
Wow.
of course cold for me. We're wearing coats and a lot of things. I don't know how we can live in your country.
Yes. That's a big difference. You probably don't ever need to wear a coat.
Oh, really?
No, you. I'm saying you. Do you need to wear a coat
Yes,
ever?
now I am wearing coat now.
You're wearing a coat now?
Yes.
It's not cold. That's like perfect temperature right there.
Wow.
Your temperature is nice temperature.
No,
Yeah.
it's 22, 25. It's a little cold for us. Our temperature always around 30, 35, like this.
Yeah. That's funny. Yes. Well, I grew up in California, and it was very hot during the summers there. But I have been living in Washington State for the last 11 years, where it's much cooler. So now I'm more used to the cold weather and being cool. So when it's hot, I get like a headache. It's too hot. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you prefer cold weather or hot weather?
Well, I prefer cold weather because in the cold weather you can get warm. You just have to put clothes on,
Yes.
go inside. But the hot weather, it can be so like we say oppressive. It just feels so hot and you can't escape it. I mean, you can go
Mm.
inside to a house and have a fan on or air conditioning, you know,
But
but
that you feel this because you don't have a beach near you,
yes, that's true. Well, we do have
or
water,
not.
but not where I was from in California. Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be really cold. Like really cold would be like Moscow or, Montreal
No.
or
Mm.
that would be too cold for me. So, yeah.
California has the similar weather like Mallorca.
Yes. Yes.
It's
And
very similar.
the weather in California is interesting because California is so big. It's a long state. If you look on the
Mm,
map, it's
mhm.
very long. And so the northern part of California can actually be very, well, by the water, it can be very foggy, very cold and cool temperatures. But as you go south, it's much more like Spain. Even on the water, it can be warm. Like right now, on the coast in California, it's pretty warm. But San Francisco is not always warm, so a lot of people think that everywhere in California is hot or sunny. But
Mm, mhm.
if you go to San Francisco in the summer, it's actually pretty cool because they have a lot of fog that comes in off of the water of the ocean there. It cools down, so it can be kind of chilly in the summertime, which is interesting because everywhere else it's hot in the summer. Yeah. So if you want to go to San Francisco, go like in May or something, June. But July and August can be chilly. Okay, guys. Well, I picked this article today from the BBC. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if this is something you guys have to do, but it's definitely something that happens here in the United States and I guess also in England because that's where this article is talking about. They're talking about people in England. Um, and that is being an extreme commuter. So a commuter is a person who has to drive or somehow take a train or something to get from their house to their place of work, to their job. And usually, here in the U.S., maybe people have to drive anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to a half an hour. That's kind of maybe normal each way. But an extreme commuter, this article is talking about those people who they spend hours and hours every day commuting or getting to their house, to their job, and back. So that's what they're talking about in this article. So we will take turns reading, and I will go over vocabulary that I think maybe might be new for you. But if there is something you have a question about, make sure you ask me. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. If you're not sure why a word was used or a verb tense or preposition or any of those types of things that you want to make sure you understand. All right, The Rise of the Extreme Commuters, the title. Subtitle is Most People Hate Commuting, a Modern-Day Necessary Evil. So why would anyone choose to build a lengthy commute into their lifestyle, asks Karen Greger. All right, I'm going to take a long one here. So we're only 3 people. If other people join in, we'll add them to the reading round. Marcus used to live in London, but moved to rural Suffolk to give his children a bucolic upbringing. In doing so, he created a commute of, on a good day, 2 hours and 45 minutes in one direction. On a bad day, snow on the line, the wrong kind of leaves, it can take him anything up to 3.5 hours from home to office. Okay, Alexander, why don't you begin by reading all of that I just read.
Okay. The rise of extreme commuter. Most people hate commuting, a modern-day necessarily evil. So why would anyone choose to build a lengthy commute into their lifestyle? Asked Karen Gregor. Marcus used to live in London, but moved to rural Suffolk to give his children a bucolic upbringing. In doing so, he created a commute of, on a good day, 2 hours and 45 minutes in one direction. On a bad day, snow on the line, the wrong kind of leaves, it can take him anything up to 3.5 hours from home to office.
Okay, so here, let me just, that's the hate. So when I heard you pronounce it, I'm not sure what you said, but it wasn't hate. So hate is
Hate.
with a long, hate. And
Hate.
exactly, right, just like that. So it's a modern day necessary evil. So it's something that people hate to do. They do not like it, but they must do it in our modern day lives. But why would anyone choose? And this is to build a lengthy commute into their lifestyle. To build means to put into your life. Why would you choose to do this is basically that question. Why would you choose to have to, spend so much time commuting from your home to your office? Let's see, a few words here. So this guy Marcus, he used to live. That's a common pattern that when we're talking about the past. So you could say Marcus lived in London, but we often use used to. So Marcus used to live in London, but he moved to the rural area. So that's like a countryside. So he moved to the countryside because he wanted to have his children have a bucolic upbringing. So bucolic is referring to the type of upbringing, and it means very beautiful in the countryside. So when you think of something bucolic, you're thinking of the countryside, animals, trees. It's very pretty. It's like the opposite of a big city life. It's very bucolic. And the upbringing is what you say, how you bring up your kids, how you raise your children. So if you're talking about a children's upbringing, it means how did they live during, yes?
It's ideal.
Yes, exactly. Very bucolic is ideal. And hi there, Donato. In doing so, he created a commute. Okay, so 2 hours and 45 minutes in one direction. So that's almost 3 hours each way. That's pretty crazy. And it can be up to 3.5 hours each way. So nearly 6 or more hours per day is what he spends commuting. The journey starts off by car, a quick spin through the lanes to the station. He hops on a single-engine train at 5:40 GMT, which rattles to Cambridge carrying exhausted-looking painter-decorators and builders. There are very few suits around at that unearthly hour. At Cambridge, a speedy, modern train takes him to King's Cross. From there, he has a 25-minute canal side walk to his office. Okay, Donato, how about you read that one?
Okay, thanks, Lisa. Good evening, everyone.
Yes, hello.
The journey starts off by car, a quick spin through the lanes to the station. He hops on a single-engine train at 5:30 GMT, which rattles to Cambridge, carrying exhausted-looking painter decorators and builders. There are very few suits around that unearthly hour. At Cambridge, a speedy modern train takes him to King's Cross. From there, he has a 25-minute canal-side walk to his office.
So he starts off by car. That just means he begins his journey in a car, by car. So when you're one of the good things about the reading class is you get a lot of the language just naturally. So oftentimes people have trouble with the phrasal verbs or using the prepositions. So when you see them in the reading, just take note, so then they become something that you know how to use correctly. So you start something off, it means you begin, and by car means in a car. So he goes by car first. He takes a quick spin. A quick spin just means in your car. He takes a short trip. So it's a short trip or a quick spin through the lanes, that means through the lanes of the road, to the train station. He hops, and you caught yourself there, Donato, so that it's a hop sound. We call that a short O sound, hops, on a single engine train very early in the morning, before 6 a.m. It rattles. Rattles just means makes kind of a lot of noise. It goes, like you think of a older train that kind of goes back and forth on the rails and makes noise. That's what it means to rattle. And these people are exhausted looking, so they are very tired. It's so early in the morning. But he's making a distinction here, because what you're seeing is people that work in like the construction field. So painters, decorators, builders. There are very few suits around, so they are not the professional type of people going to offices. Mostly they're the people who wake up early in the morning to go work on buildings and things like that. And he says, at this unearthly hour. Unearthly means like this, we also could say God-forsaken, or this crazy, why would anybody get up this early? It's just unearthly. It shouldn't be happening is what it kind of means. It's too early. Yes, and so he has to take the train, then he has to walk. So he has all these things he has to do every morning just to get to work. Marcus has, yes?
Just a question.
Yes?
Builders are workers?
Builders, yes. People who work on buildings. So they are construction workers, builders.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, painters, decorators are the people who work inside the house. So the way I understand this is he's mainly just trying to make a distinction between kind of more like laborers. So these are people like blue collar. We call them blue collar workers. They do manual labor type stuff, versus white collar workers, who are people who wear suits and work in offices. We have that distinction. Marcus has Marcus has what he describes as a portfolio career, and says that the journey, which breaks up into distinct chunks, allows him time to think about different tasks on each leg of the trip. His beautiful garden, his chickens, and the peace and tranquility that surrounds his home life contrasts markedly with the noisy urban streetscape that awaits him each day in London. Okay, Lucas?
Okay. Marcus has what he describes as a portfolio career, and says that the journey, which breaks up into distinct chunks, allows him time to think about different tasks on each leg of the trip. His beautiful garden, his chickens, and the peace and the tranquility that surrounds his home life contrast markedly with the noisy urban
Mhm.
streetscape that evades him each day in London.
Okay. All right. So this right here, he's saying that he has a portfolio career. That's kind of a new term that means you don't have one type of job. You do lots of different things to make money. So, in the past, usually you would just do one thing and you might actually do it your whole life. Like you might be a policeman your whole life. You might be a doctor. You might be an accountant or something like that. But now with the economic crises in different parts of the world, many people are kind of putting together different ways of making money. So you might, do 2, 3, 4 different types of things to make money, and so that's become known as a portfolio career. Usually your portfolio is like everything you've done. So, yes?
It's the same like a resume.
A portfolio can be part of a resume. It shows what work you've done. A lot of times, especially artists would have a portfolio, or like a photographer, it would be like all the pictures you've taken, not all of them, but the ones that show what you can do. So your portfolio shows what you can do. But in this case, that's why they put it in quotes, because it's kind of a new way to use that word. So a portfolio career is kind of like a career that you have lots of different things that you're doing. So there's a couple different meanings for that portfolio. But in this case, that's what he's saying. He has some different things. And so why he's saying that is because it's nice that his journey is broken up into, that's a phrasal verb there, if you break something up into something, like usually it's parts or chunks. A chunk is a part of something. So he has distinct chunks. So each leg of his trip, he gets the first part in his car, then the train, and then the walk. Those are each chunks of time. And he can think about different things, different tasks on each one of those chunks. So he's thinking about his garden, his chickens, and the peace and tranquility. Tranquility is basically kind of the same thing as peace. It just means quiet. You have peace and quiet at home. And how that contrasts markedly, that means a lot. So markedly is like quite a bit, with the noisy urban streetscapes that are in London, that he's going to that every day. So he enjoys having a foot in each location. The journey, he says, allows him time to make the transition from one to the other. According to Lizzie Crowley of the Work Foundation, Marcus is officially an extreme commuter. Anyone whose return journey to work amounts to 3 hours and over fulfills this criterion. Perhaps Marcus deserves a new term altogether, such as Uber commuter. Okay, Mohammed.
Okay, sorry. He enjoys having a foot in each location. And the journey, he says, allow him time to make the transition from one to the other. According to Lizzie,
Lizzie.
According to Lizzie Crowley of the Work Foundation, Marcus is officially an extreme commuter. Anyone whose return journey to work amounts to 3 hours and over fulfills this
criterion. This is a CR is the hard C, so it's criterion.
Okay. To 3 hours and over fulfills this criterion.
Yep.
Perhaps Marcos deserves a new term, uh, altogether,
Yes, all together.
altogether, such as upper commuter.
Uh-huh.
Commuter.
Yes. So he likes that his journey, his what he has to do, his commute in the morning, allows him. So that means it gives him time to make the transition. So he's going from one very peaceful, quiet, bucolic farming situation kind of thing in the countryside with his family to this very hustle and bustle, loud, noisy streets, cars, honking horns, everything. And so it's a transition. Whenever you make a transition, you go from one type of thing to another. So this lady says that he's an extreme commuter, which they define as anybody who commutes more than 3 hours to work. So a criterion is if you meet that specific criteria, that's what what a criterion is, like the actual fact of something. So if you meet that fact, like he does do that, then he can be called an extreme commuter. But he says maybe he needs another one, Uber commuter, because he's like, Uber is like a German word, just means like over the top, like he's just like amazing. I mean, it's extreme, same thing. All right, so Crowley points out that a recent survey by the recruitment organization Randstad showed that while the recession has led to a drop in the number of people commuting as people lost their jobs, there has been an increase in people traveling more than 3 hours a day. Okay, Alexander?
Crowley points out that a recent survey by the recruitment organization Randstad showed that while the recession has led to a drop in the number of people commuting as people lost their jobs, there has been an increase in people traveling more than 3 hours a day.
Mm-hmm. So a recent survey, so the survey that they just happened just a little while ago, pointed out. So to point out, that's another phrasal verb there. It just means to talk about a certain aspect of something. So if you point out something, it means that you want the other person to notice it. So she is pointing out, or drawing attention to the fact that during the recession, so when the economy slows down and there's people lose their jobs, there has been a drop in the number of. So a drop in the number of, it just means it went down. So there were actually less people commuting. But unfortunately, I think, an increase in people traveling more than 3 hours. So part of that is because you have to look for a job. You might actually have to go beyond your own town to find a job.
Points out is like exposing.
What happened here? Hold on, let me get this back. My new Mavericks has funny things. Point out means when you want somebody to notice something, or you want to draw specific attention to a certain point. A point is like a fact. So when you're talking about a survey, there's lots of information in a survey. So she could say, we found this out and we found that out. But to point something out means to talk about that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if say you're in Europe and you're in Paris or something, and you're looking at the Eiffel Tower and you have a tour guide, they could say something like, I want to point out that, and then they'll tell you something special about the Eiffel Tower. So if you want to point something out to somebody else, it means you want to draw their attention to it. You want them to know about it. Mm-hmm. So she's making a point of this, yeah.
Like a highlight.
Exactly, yeah, that's good. Synonym. To highlight something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The
Lisa, Crowley.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
Crowley is this lady right here.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a common thing. I don't know if you guys do that, but it's pretty common when you're writing or when you're talking. More like when you're writing, if you first talk about the person, you say their first and their last name, and then if you talk about it again, instead of saying Lizzie Crowley again, you just use the last name. That's a common thing.
Yeah.
How many surnames do you
write
have
it?
in USA?
In the U.S., we usually have. I'll put it right here. So we have the first name. So like my first name is Lisa, and then we have what we call our middle name, which my middle name is Marie, and then we have our last name. So my last name is Biskup. So we have 3 names, but usually you only use the first name and the last name. You don't usually use the middle name too much, except for in some parts of the country. Like in the southern states, some names are popular, like Mary Sue. You know, it'll be 2 words, 2 names, but that's what you call them, Mary Sue.
Everybody have a middle name?
Pretty much everybody has a middle name. That's the most common, but your mom and your dad get to decide.
No, I am asking that because sometimes when I have to fill a request in English, sometimes I saw a middle name, and always I confuse with my last name. Because in Spain we have 2 surnames, 2 last names.
Right.
And I put first name my name, middle name my first surname, and last name my second surname.
Yeah, sometimes nowadays it has become more popular to put 2 last names together. So for example, my former brother-in-law and sister-in-law, when they got married, they took each other's last name. So instead of just Biskup, they took the wife's last name, which was Henry, and then they took Biskup. So now her name is Pamela, and I don't know her middle name. It might be Sue or something. I don't know. Pamela Sue Henry Biskup. So then my nephews, they have a first name Joshua. I think his middle name is Cole, and then he has his last name. It's like that, Henry Biskup. So, yeah. So that's kind of, some people do that these days because they want to have both the woman's last name and the man's last name together. So, but then it starts getting very long.
Feminist movements.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because obviously when your parents, they get to name you, so it's really up to your parents. And some parents have funny ideas. They choose funny names, or they do funny things that are not like just the traditional way. So sometimes people have 2 middle names because they wanted to give the child, the name of like the grandparents or something. So. Some people have funny names. You can always change it later, though, if you want, when you grow up and you become an adult. Okay. All right. The survey, which looked at the commuting patterns of 2,000 workers between 2008 and 2013, found that almost 1 in 10 respondents were now traveling for that period a day, compared with 1 in 20 previously. It's difficult to unpick the reasons why this is happening, says Crowley. You could say it's a response of highly skilled earners to a tougher labor market. They've expanded their job search to areas further from their home. All right. Whose turn was it? Lucas, is it your turn?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay. The survey, which looked at the commuting patterns of 2,000 workers between 2008 and 2014, found that almost 1 in 10 respondents were now traveling for that period a day, compared with 1 in 20 previously. It's difficult to unpack the reason why this is happening, says Crowley. You could say it's a response of highly skilled earners to a tougher market. They've expanded their job search to areas farther from their home.
Good. All right, so they looked at commuting patterns. So the pattern is just what do people do? What do we notice they do over and over again? And 1 in 10 were now traveling for that period of day. So that means that amount of time. The period is referring to the time a day. So we can always say a day or per day. So it means each day. Compared with 1 in 20 previously, so it's like doubled, people traveling this long period of time each day. It's difficult to unpick the reasons. That's interesting. You actually said unpack, which is what we would say in the United States. Unpick is like it means the same thing, but in the United States we would say unpack. So unpack means like to figure out the reasons why, like take apart and figure out the reasons so that you understand something. It also means to unpack, like your suitcase. If you go on a trip, you have a suitcase, you get to the hotel, you want to take out your clothes, you have to unpack. But unpick, it means the same thing. It's actually, if you look it up, it refers to taking out the stitches of sewing. If you've sewn something, you pick them out. But in this case, it just means trying to figure out why is this happening. So she's giving her opinion. It might be that it is a response. So these highly skilled earners, so people who have high skills and they are high-level earners, let's say, they work in offices and stuff, it's harder for them to find jobs because of the tougher labor market. If you describe tougher labor market, it means there aren't as many jobs available. So they have to expand their job search. They have to look farther away from their home. Further, farther, we can say both. So, you know, you might have to continue to live in one town but go work in another town far away. Another more reluctant commuter who may fall into this bracket is James. He travels by car and train from Trowbridge in Wiltshire to Hook in Hampshire each morning, a door-to-door journey of around 2 hours and 30 minutes. He works as a consultant, and his main client, who used to be based 10 minutes from his home, moved their head offices to Hampshire. Okay, Mohammed?
Yes, okay. Another more reluctant commuter who may fall into this bracket as James. He travels by car and train from Trowbridge in Wiltshire to Hook in Hampshire. Each morning a door-to-door journey of around 2 hours and 30 minutes. He works as a consultant, and his main client, who used to be based 10 minutes from his home, moved their head office to Hampshire.
Yes, so a more reluctant. So in the first part, this guy, you know, he apparently wanted to do this because he wanted to raise his kids in a very ideal setting, a very beautiful country setting, not in the city. So he's willing to do this. But if another person, he doesn't really want to be doing this, we call that person a reluctant. He's doing it reluctantly. He doesn't really want to do it. So he falls into this bracket. So a bracket means into this group of people. So he's an extreme commuter. He travels by car and train, and 2 hours and 30 minutes. So he is meeting that criteria, that particular fact that he has to, spend almost 3 hours each way in his car. And the only reason why is because his main client, so probably the person he makes the most money with, who used to be based 10 minutes from his home. So here again we have the structure used to, and then the verb to be, based. So it used to be, or the client used to have his office right near this guy, James, but he moved. So they moved to Hampshire, and so in order to keep working and getting this good money, he has to commute this long distance rather than moving, it says here in this next one. Instead of relocating, which wouldn't suit family life, he makes the journey almost daily. If I had a choice, he says, I would like to not have such a long commute, but you just have to go where the work is in these tough times. The fact that I have a job is a good thing. I'd rather not do it, but it's required. Okay, Alexander? Right there.
Instead of relocating, which wouldn't suit family life, he makes the journey almost daily. If I had a choice, he says, I'd like to not have such a long commute, but you just have to go where the work is in these tough times. Tough times. The fact that I have a job is a good thing. I'd rather not do it, but it's required.
Mm-hmm. To relocate means to change, move your house. You move to another town for a certain reason. He didn't want to do that because it wouldn't suit. So it wouldn't fit. It wouldn't be a good thing for his family life. So he instead makes this long journey. If he had a choice, so he's saying he doesn't have a choice. If I had a choice, I would like to not have such a long commute. But he says that it's really hard to find work these days because it's tough times. So this pronunciation of this GH, it's really like an F. So it kind of sounds more like if it was written like that. Tough. Tough times. The fact that I have a job is a good thing. So he's just happy to be working. I'd rather not do it. It just means I don't really want to do it. I would rather not do it, but it is required. It's required. It's necessary. While many extreme commuters may find that the traveling time has no adverse impact on their health, Crowley warns of a potential for extreme stress, chronic fatigue, and an increased likelihood of developing indicators that might lead to a heart attack. Then there is the impact the commute can have on family life. Okay, Donato?
While many extreme commuters may find that the traveling time has no adverse impact on their health, Crowley warns of a potential for extreme stress, chronic fatigue, and increased likelihood of developing indicators that might lead to heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the impact that the commute can have on family life.
Yeah. So they may find, it's like possibility, they may find that it has no adverse impact on their health. So it doesn't have a bad. An adverse means bad or unhealthy or not good, negative. So it might not be bad on their health, but she warns of, to warn of something. It could be true that it could be extreme stress, so you could have a lot of stress. You could have a lot of fatigue. You could become very tired all the time. Chronic means like all the time. And increased likelihood, So your chances of having a heart attack might go up. So it might lead to a heart attack. She's not saying it would, but these are possibilities. And then there's also the impact. So what effect does it have on your family life? Jane and Doug live in the Midlands and have 3 small children. When Doug was made redundant from a local job, he found a new one over 2 hours drive away. The commute as such wasn't a problem for him, but it was proving very disruptive for family life. Okay, Lucas.
Jan and Doug live in the Midlands and have 3 small children. When Doug was made redundant.
Yeah. Redundant.
From a local job, he found a new one over 2 hours drive away. The commute as such wasn't a problem for him, but it was proving very disruptive for family.
It was proving.
Proving.
Proving, yes. So, you know, he had a job, but then he was made redundant. That means in the United States, we don't use that. We would have said something like when Doug lost his job or when he was fired. So to be made redundant means you lose your job. They fired you. They let you go. So he had one that was local, nearby his house, but then he had found another one that was far away, and so then he had to commute. It wasn't a problem for him, so apparently he didn't mind doing it, but it was proving, or it was showing to be very disruptive for family life. So it was disrupting is the verb. It means it's just messing up, basically. You know, it's not a good thing. Inevitably, Doug would arrive home just as his young brood were in the middle of the crucial bedtime routine, and order would quickly turn to chaos. Between them, Jane and Doug decided it might be more sensible for Doug to stay away 2 nights a week. This he does, and it's working well for the family. Okay, Mohammed.
Okay. Inevitably, Doug would arrive home just as his young brood were in the middle of the crucial bedtime routine, and order would quickly turn to cause chaos between them. Jane and Doug decide it might be more sensible for Doug to stay away 2 nights a week. This he does, and it's working well for the family.
So Doug, that's just somebody's name. It sounds more like Doug, which is also a verb to dig. So it's just the U sound. Inevitably. So if something is inevitable, it means like it's every time it happens without fail. So it's just going to happen every time. So basically every time he would come home, his young brood, that means his children. Your brood is your children. It's really referring to chickens. When a hen has chicks, that's called her brood. So it's your baby chicks or your children. He would be getting there like right when she was putting them to bed. So that's the crucial bedtime routine. So the mom is trying to put the kids to bed, and then he would come home, and then everything would turn into chaos. That word chaos. So a lot of times the CH would be more like ch, like choice or chance or chunk or something like that. But in this case, it's more like a K sound, chaos. So just lots of noise would happen. The kids would probably, not want to go to bed. They want to talk to their dad, that kind of thing. So they thought it would be more sensible or smarter. If something is sensible, it's a smart thing to do. And so he stays away. That means he sleeps. Maybe he just doesn't come home that night. He stays somewhere else. And that's working well. So that is better for the family. The word commuter originates from the early days of train travel in the U.S. Train fares would be reduced or commuted to make traveling to cities from the newly developed suburbs more affordable. And cost, of course, is a major factor for today's commuters. Okay, Alexander?
The word commuter originates from early days of train travel in the U.S. Train fares will be reduced or commuted
Mm-hmm.
to make traveling to cities from the newly developed suburbs more affordable. Affordable. And cost, of course, and can you repeat? Can you repeat?
Affordable.
Affordable.
Yeah, right. Affordable.
And cost, of course, is a major factor for today's commuters.
Mm-hmm. So it came from, so originates from, that means where it started. So it originated from the early days. So in the U.S., was kind of famous for making these cities, but then making the suburbs. So this is where a lot of houses and neighborhoods are in the cities. They would have to travel to the cities to work. So they made it more affordable, which means cheaper for those people. So they would make the cost or the fare, that's how much it costs, they would make it lower. They would reduce it or commute it. They commuted it. So that helped people be able to afford to live far away from the city but travel by the train to get to work. Rob makes a 3-hour one-way commute so that he and his wife can be closer to elderly parents. This longer commute is cheaper than the shorter one he previously did from Berkshire to London. The unexpected upside of this reduced fare on a non-commuter line is matched by fast Wi-Fi speed. He's productive from the moment he steps on the train, which he views as a mobile office, to the moment he arrives home in the evening. It makes for extremely long days, but weekends are now entirely his own. Okay, Donato.
Okay, Rob makes a 3-hour one-way commute so that he and his wife can be closer to elderly parents. This longer commute is cheaper than the shorter one he previously did from Berkshire to London. The unexpected upside of this reduced fare on a non-commuter line is matched by fast Wi-Fi speed. He is productive from the moment he steps on the train, which he views as a mobile office, to the moment he arrives home in the evening. It makes for extremely long days, but weekends are now entirely his own.
So a 3-hour one-way commute. Wow, 6 hours a day he spends traveling. So that he and his wife can be closer to elderly parents, so older parents, people who are getting older, they are elderly. And this longer commute is cheaper. So he's not going on the commuter line, but he's actually going on a regular train. It's cheaper, but it's longer. So it's the shorter one that he previously, so previously refers to what he did before. It's a longer one, but the unexpected upside of. So unexpected means you wouldn't think about it, but it was a good thing. So the upside of something is like a good thing about it. So even he had this reduced fare, so he's saving money, and is matched by. So in addition, he gets a fast Wi-Fi speed on the train. So that means he can work. he's productive, so that means he produces, he works, he does something productive while he is on the train. So that's why he calls it a mobile office. He can actually just work while he's sitting there on the train. And even though these are very, very, very extremely, just means very, very, very long days, he gets to not do any work on the weekend. They are entirely his own. He doesn't have to work on the weekends now. Marianne makes...
Lisa.
Yes.
Just a question. I
Sure.
don't understand. Where? He and his wife can be closer to elderly parents. Why? Rob makes 3 hours and then can be closer to elderly parents. Why? Because he has his weekends free now.
No, that's why he's making the 3-hour one-way commute, because they moved to a town probably that is so that he and his wife are living close to their parents. So that's the
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the reason why he has to make this commute, because they made a choice.
It was not due to the crisis. Okay. Crisis.
Yes, exactly. This was a choice. You know, just like the other guy wanted to live, you know, have his children grow up in the countryside. So there's different reasons why people are having to commute. Some, it's a choice. They don't want to live in London. They want to live outside of London. Or they need to live, like this guy has to live in a certain area because that's where his parents live, you know, instead of moving his parents to where he lived, for example.
Okay.
So everybody has different situations, basically. Marian makes her 5-hour-a-day return commute from Essex to central London by car and tube. The train is prohibitively expensive. She's not the only commuter in her single-parent family, though. Her daughter doesn't travel the same kind of distance, but her daily routine involves being dropped at a friend's house, who then takes her to a childminder, who delivers her to school. A commuter in the making, perhaps? Okay, Lucas?
Marion makes her 5 hours a day return commute from Essex to central London by car and tube. The train is prohibitively expensive. She's not the only commuter in her single-parent family, though her daughter doesn't travel the same kind of distance, but her daily routine involves being dropped at a friend's house, who then takes her to a childminder, who delivers her to school. A commuter in the making, perhaps.
Yeah. All right, quickly here. Prohibitively expensive. So if something is prohibitively, it means it's impossible. You cannot afford it. It is just too expensive for you. So it's prohibited to you. You cannot pay that much. Her daughter also has to be shuffled around, we could say. So she doesn't have to travel the same kind of distance. So she doesn't have to travel as far as her mom does every day, but she does have a daily routine where she has to be dropped at or dropped off at a friend's house. So they take her to the friend's house, and then this person takes her to a childminder. That's British English. In American English, we would say a babysitter, the person who watches the child for you, and then delivers her to school or takes her to school. And then the last sentence says, a commuter in the making, perhaps. So is this child already getting used to commuting long distances? You know, so it means in the making, like she will be a commuter as an adult in her future. Okay.
In progress.
Yeah, in progress, like in the making, yeah. So we're going to end this class, but before I do, I just want to know, do you guys have to commute at all to get to work? Like, how long does it take you to get from your house to where you're working or where you're studying? Donato, what about you? You're living right there, aren't you?
Okay, I'm in my base, but in Italy,
Yeah.
my room is upstairs, my department. So it's 2 minutes. 1
That's
minute.
wow.
Oh,
That's
you
nice.
have good style life.
Yeah, that's nice. You don't even have to get in a car.
Yeah, but there
No.
are negative, like a bad side is that I can't host anybody, so no girls, no friends.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. What about you, Alexander?
Well, currently I'm not working.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 years ago, in my first year teaching,
Mm-hmm.
my destination to teach was in a town,
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 hours to my hometown,
Mm.
and I had to search a hostel for 2 days
Yeah.
because it was work for middle part-time,
Mm.
Monday and Wednesday, and
Yeah.
I had to stay or take the night
Yeah.
for 2 nights every week.
Wow. Okay. What
Yes,
about you? What about you, Mohammed?
more comfortable for me, a
Yeah.
little expensive.
Yes. Right.
Yes,
Mohammed, do you
it's,
have?
yes, exactly. It take around half an hour from. I stay in the middle of the city,
Mm-hmm.
Abu Dhabi city,
Mm-hmm.
and my work in the industrial area.
Mm.
It take around half an hour by car.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
about normal, I think. Typical.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
normal. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, guys.
Okay,
Well,
thank
I
you.
have to start the next class. If you want to go talk some more, you can join me there. Otherwise, I'll see you another time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very
Okay,
Okay.
much.
thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Hi, everybody. This is Lisa with Verbling.com, and it's time for another English class. We have English classes every hour here on Verbling.com. Sometimes we have one or two teachers teaching a class at the same time. And if you are a member of Verbling.com, then you can join the class at any time. You can join as many classes as you would like, all day, every day, basically. We have teachers from around the world. They are all native speakers of English, but they live in different countries around the world. So I live in the United States. I live in the state of Washington on the West Coast. So I'm here, and then we have other teachers in other places like Costa Rica, the Netherlands, other parts of Canada. So if you are interested in practicing your English, then joining Verbling is a great way to do that. Every hour you can join different types of classes. So for example, this class is going to be a reading class. So what happens during the reading class is I choose an article. I usually choose articles that are good for intermediate to advanced learners. So people who are not real beginners, but more intermediate level students. And what I do is I choose an article sometimes from the New York Times. Today it is an article from the BBC. So we get both American English and British English. And we read the article together. So what I do is I actually read the article one paragraph at a time. So I read first, and so you get to hear me saying the words, and that way you can listen and hear my pronunciation, and then each student takes a turn reading. And so if you want to do that, you can join the class now. There were some reservations, so if you had a reservation, you can use that now. And if you don't, that's okay. You don't need to have a reservation unless the class is full. So we can have up to 9 students in the class. And yeah, okay. And how's the weather in Spain today?
Well, today is a funny day, but the temperature not warm.
Mm.
It's very humidity in town.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we are in 15 degrees
Oh,
or
okay.
less.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm. All right.
And it's cold. It's cold. At the night
That's cold
it's
for you,
cold.
yeah. Yeah.
And for me too. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait. Great. Okay, well, wonderful. Mohammed, what's the weather like right now in the United Arab Emirates?
An emirate, it's a desert area.
Yes, I know.
It's always
It's
always
raining
hot.
petroleum.
Yes,
Is it
exactly.
raining petroleum?
Yes. But these days is a little cold, maybe around 25.
That's cool for you.
Yeah. That's of
Wow.
course cold for me. We're
Yeah.
wearing coats and a lot of things. I don't know how we can live in your country.
Yes. That's a big difference. You probably don't ever need to wear a coat.
Oh, really?
No, you. I'm saying you. Do you need to wear a coat
Yes,
ever?
now I am wearing coat now.
You're wearing a coat now?
Yes.
It's not cold. That's like perfect temperature right there.
Wow.
Your temperature is nice temperature.
No,
Yeah.
it's 22, 25. It's a little cold for us. Our temperature always around 30, 35, like this.
Yeah. That's funny. Yes. Well, I grew up in California and it was very hot during the summers there, but I have been living in Washington State for the last 11 years where it's much cooler. So now I'm more used to the cold weather and being cool. So when it's hot, I get like a headache. It's too hot. So we have some people who have joined us. Hi, Mohammed. How are you doing today?
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good. Mohammed, who's that picture?
This is I think Indian poet. His name is Tagore.
Oh, okay. Tagore. And Mohammed, where are you from?
I'm from United Arab Emirates.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
Lucas is back. Hi, Lucas. How are you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Good. Welcome back. So you guys know the drill. Did you open the? Yeah, it looks like maybe you guys already opened. We're going to wait just a minute to see who else shows up because we did have a few reservations. So Alexander's joining us again. Hi, Alexander.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm
Yeah?
just finishing a little work with my computer,
Mm-hmm.
and now 1 hour or two English classes.
Great. Wonderful.